Every week, I provide access to authentic documents from closed archives. There is no artistic fiction here. If you're watching this, it means the material has already breached the system. We assume no responsibility for what you learn. Subscribe. Knowledge is irreversible. The quiet suburbs of a mid-sized American town in the Midwest, where the summers grew hotter every year and the old apartment buildings stood like silent witnesses to forgotten lives, there was a unit that no one could keep for long. The rent was suspiciously low, the furnishings outdated, and the neighbors mostly kept to themselves. But those who stayed longer than a month always left with stories they rarely told aloud. Stories of a frail old woman across the hall who seemed harmless at first. Her name was Mrs. Evelyn Hargrove, or at least that's what the mailbox said. She had lived there longer than anyone could remember. Some said she was just a lonely widow whose mind had slipped with age. Others whispered darker things when the lights were low. The landlady, Emily, had learned the hard way that the warnings about apartment 4B were not superstitions. 5 years earlier, Emily had bought the place thinking she got a bargain. She quickly discovered the true price. After barely escaping with her life and months in the hospital, she swore never to live there again. Selling proved impossible. Every potential buyer fled after encountering Mrs. Evelyn's episodes. So Emily started renting it out, hoping a tenant would last longer than the last ones. But the apartment always collected its toll. This is the story of one more tenant who thought he had found a decent deal. His name was Alex. He was young, independent, and tired of living with his parents. He believed a cheap one-bedroom with old furniture was just what he needed to start his own life. He had no idea that some doors should never be opened, and some neighbors were never truly alone. Yeah, I'm calling about the apartment listing. Are you still renting it out? Good afternoon. Yes, I am. Can I come by and take a look? Of course. Will you be living alone or with someone? Just me. Perfect. I'll text you the address right now. Come around 5? Sounds good. See you then. See you. I had been thinking about moving out of my parents' house for a while and browsing rental options. The prices, though, were discouraging. With my income, I could only afford some run-down one-bedroom on the outskirts, an old wooden house, or a room in a shared apartment. None of them seemed appealing. Still, for a decent price, maybe I'd get lucky. And then I found this listing, a one-bedroom apartment. The renovation wasn't modern, but it had all the appliances and furniture. Just 5 minutes walk from the bus stop and not too far from my parents. I arrived at 5 as agreed. The landlady, Emily, a pleasant woman in her 40s, showed me around, told me about the neighborhood infrastructure, and asked when I could move in. Is the price the same as in the ad? I asked. Yes, exactly. Why so cheap, you ask? The renovation isn't new, that's why. And the appliances and furniture are old, as you can see. I just shrugged. It was strange. Usually wrecked places cost almost as much as luxury ones. But okay, I'd take it. What about the neighbors? They're all decent people. Just try not to make noise after 10 at night. The only thing... She paused, as if wondering whether to continue. There's an old lady living in the apartment across from yours. She's quite elderly and sometimes acts strangely. Don't be scared, she's harmless. Just better not to interact with her too much. I see. When can I move in? The sooner the better. Great. We can sign the lease right now. I quickly read the contract, paid Emily for the first month, went home to grab my things. My parents were surprised I was moving so fast, but didn't mind. They even seemed glad. By 9 in the evening, I was sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee. Most of my stuff was already unpacked, so I just relaxed. Soon I wanted a smoke. Emily had said it was okay to smoke on the balcony, so I stepped outside, lit a cigarette, and looked down at the quiet courtyard. I was happy there was no playground below, no screaming kids, no running around. A few benches stood empty. Everyone was hiding from the heat inside. It had been over 95 degrees Fahrenheit for days, unusual for our region, but I handled it better than most. While thinking about how July was merciless this year, I saw an old lady walking across the yard. She was dressed in heavy winter clothes, coat, hat, boots, in the middle of summer. The sight gave me chills. What a weird old woman. Wait, could this be the neighbor Emily had mentioned? That evening I went out to buy something tasty. The fridge only had mayonnaise and a pack of dumplings, definitely not what I wanted. As soon as I stepped onto the landing, I came face to face with the same old lady I had seen in the courtyard. She was wearing the same heavy winter clothes. "Oh!" she cried out in fright, looking me over but saying nothing. Once outside, I calmed down a bit. I didn't understand why she had scared me so much. I returned from the 24-hour store without further incidents. Overall, life in the rented apartment suited me. I was on my own, no one telling me what to do. I could sleep until noon, work on my laptop all day, or invite friends over. Emily turned out to be a reasonable landlady. She never came by without warning. The neighbors were fine too. I had been wary of the old lady at first, but now I even felt sorry for her. No one visited her. She kept to herself, never talked to anyone in the yard. Sometimes she would just stand motionless in the entrance for a long time. I felt bad for her, so every time I went grocery shopping, I bought something for her too. Tea, cookies, or milk. I usually met her outside and handed her the bag. She would hide it quickly and mutter, "Thank you." I wanted to do more, but I wasn't rich myself. One evening I was cooking dinner when I heard noise on my floor. Curious, I looked through the peephole. What I saw made me flinch. The old lady was standing right in front of my door, staring at it without blinking. Damn, I can't get used to her quirks, I thought. After recovering from the shock, I went back to the kitchen. 20 minutes later, I checked again. She was still there. Maybe she needed help. I opened the door. "Hello, do you need something, ma'am?" She looked at me guiltily and said, "Grandson, help your old granny. My TV broke. I don't have money for a repairman till my pension comes." "No problem, I'll take a look for free." We went to her apartment. My heart ached at the sight. The place was gloomy and neglected. Peeling wallpaper, dirty windows, grayish curtains that had once been white. No coziness, no flowers, nothing. She pointed at an ancient wooden TV. Half an hour later, I fixed it. She thanked me warmly, then shuffled to the kitchen and returned with 2 caramels. "Thank you so much." "You're welcome. I'm sorry your children and grandchildren don't visit." She had a son named John and a daughter, but they only came once a year for her birthday. Tears ran down her face. "Don't cry. I'll come visit you sometimes." I felt awful after that visit. I called my parents right away. How could her own kids abandon her like that? By evening, my mood improved. Kate texted that she would come tomorrow. Kate was my girlfriend. We couldn't live together yet because of her job, but we made the most of the time we had. I usually met her outside and handed her the bag. She would hide it quickly and mutter, "Thank you." I wanted to do more, but I wasn't rich myself. One evening I was cooking dinner when I heard noise on my floor. Curious, I looked through the peephole. What I saw made me flinch. The old lady was standing right in front of my door, staring at it without blinking. Damn, I can't get used to her quirks, I thought. After recovering from the shock, I went back to the kitchen. 20 minutes later, I checked again. She was still there. Maybe she needed help? I opened the door. "Hello, do you need something, ma'am?" She looked at me guiltily and said, "Grandson, help your old granny. My TV broke. I don't have money for a repairman until my pension comes." "No problem, I'll take a look for free." We went to her apartment. My heart ached at the sight. The place was gloomy and neglected, peeling wallpaper, dirty windows, grayish curtains that had once been white. No coziness, no flowers, nothing. She pointed at an ancient wooden TV. Half an hour later, I fixed it. She thanked me warmly, then shuffled to the kitchen and returned with 2 caramels. Thank you so much. You're welcome. I'm sorry your children and grandchildren don't visit. She had a son named John and a daughter, but they only came once a year for her birthday. Tears ran down her face. Don't cry. I'll come visit you sometimes. I felt awful after that visit. I called my parents right away. How could her own kids abandon her like that? By evening, my mood improved. Kate texted that she would come tomorrow. Kate was my girlfriend. We couldn't live together yet because of her job, but we made the most of the time we had. Next morning, I woke up at 7 a.m., unusually early for my day off, but I was excited about Kate's visit. I took a shower, went to the store, and killed time until her call came. She said she was almost there, so I headed downstairs. To freshen my breath, I unwrapped one of the caramels Mrs. Evelyn had given me and popped it in my mouth. A second later, I spat it onto the pavement. The taste was absolutely disgusting, like it had been sitting since the 90s. Still, it didn't ruin my mood. Kate and I decided to go to my place first and plan the day from there. A couple of hours later, we were at the apartment door when I suddenly felt terrible. My vision darkened, my legs buckled. I sat down on the floor and grabbed my head. Hey, what's wrong? Kate asked, worried. I don't know. I feel really bad all of a sudden. I managed to get to the couch and lie down. Because of that strange episode, our whole weekend was ruined. We didn't go anywhere and just stayed home. At least I could rest. Work let me take a week or 2 off. For the first 3 days, I barely got up. Delivery saved me. When I started feeling better, I went outside more. One afternoon, I was sitting on a bench in the courtyard when Mrs. Evelyn noticed me and came over. Dear, what happened to you? I haven't seen you for days. I don't know. I felt awful and was in bed for 3 days. Now I'm slowly recovering. Oh no, she exclaimed, turning away for a moment. I thought I saw a quick smirk on her face, but it must have been my imagination. Come visit me. I'll make you some tea and feed you properly. I really didn't want to go, but out of politeness I agreed. I'd stay for half an hour. It wouldn't kill me, and the poor woman never got visitors. Once inside, she perked up and started setting the table. She served a plate of plain vermicelli, a chunk of rye bread, and tea without sugar. It looked depressing. Mrs. Evelyn, let me order you some real food. No need, dear. This is fine. I felt sorry for her again and silently ate the tasteless, slimy pasta. Suddenly, the sky outside darkened. A wave of dizziness hit me. I dropped the fork. Is it good? She asked in a creaky voice. I nodded weakly. Then I felt something moving in my mouth. I spat out a white mush. It was full of huge white maggots, wriggling and crawling over each other. The plate was now teeming with them too. I vomited on the floor. Mrs. Evelyn burst into loud laughter. Fuck this crazy old bitch, I shouted, bolting for the door. She had given me those ancient caramels earlier and now tried to feed me worms. As I ran down the hallway, Mrs. Evelyn rose from the table with surprising speed and came after me. Panic took over. I dashed into one of the rooms, slammed the door, and locked it with the bolt. Immediately, furious pounding started on the other side. You're not getting out of here! Do you hear me? She screamed in a voice that no longer sounded human. I looked around desperately. The room had almost no furniture, but the walls were covered with grotesque paintings, distorted, mutilated faces with inverted crosses above them. She must have painted them herself. The door shook violently. Then the voice changed into something monstrous. I heard wood cracking. I backed toward the window. 5th floor, but I had no choice. Just as I reached for the handle, the door burst open. What stood there was no longer Mrs. Evelyn. Black eyes like voids, lips chewed bloody, teeth twisted and unnaturally long. That was the last thing I remembered. I woke up to the sharp smell of ammonia. Bright lights hurt my eyes. Young man, how do you feel? A voice asked. A paramedic was leaning over me. "You fell from the 5th floor window. You have a spinal injury." Later in the hospital, they diagnosed me with a compression fracture of the spine and multiple bruises. I tried to convince myself it had all been a nightmare, sleepwalking, hallucinations, anything but the truth. That same day, my parents visited. The next morning, Emily came. She looked exhausted, eyes downcast, and apologized before I could speak. "I'm so sorry. I should never have rented out that cursed apartment." She told me the whole story. 5 years ago, she bought the place cheaply, ignoring warnings. The old lady had attacked her too, lured her in, turned off the lights, tried to strangle her, then stabbed her multiple times in the dark. Emily barely survived. The neighbor was sent to a psychiatric hospital for a while, but eventually returned. Every time Emily tried to sell, the old woman would scare off buyers with her antics. So Emily started renting. I was the first tenant. "I thought a young guy like you could handle it." I told her everything that had happened to me. She listened silently, then left quickly, promising to come back the next day. She never did. Instead, my parents called. They had cleared out all my things from the apartment. A large sum of money from Emily appeared in my account with a message. "I'm sorry, you won't have to go back to that apartment." I was left paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors said recovery was unlikely. Kate visited a few times at first, but soon stopped coming. My parents tried to stay strong, but I could see the pain in their eyes. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear that creaky laugh echoing in my head, and I wonder if the nightmare is truly over, or if something far worse is only beginning. Months had passed since that fateful evening. Alex lay in a small room in his parents' house, now permanently adapted for a wheelchair. The doctors had been honest from the start. The spinal injury was severe. Walking again was almost impossible. Physical therapy helped with the pain, but nothing could erase the nightmares that visited him every single night. Kate had tried. She came for the first 2 weeks, holding his hand and promising they would get through it together. But the visits grew shorter, the silences longer. One day, she simply stopped answering calls. Alex didn't blame her. Who would want to tie herself to a broken man who jumped from a 5th-floor window because of an old woman's hallucinations? His parents were his only support now. They never said it, but he saw the exhaustion in their eyes and the medical bills piling up. The money Emily sent helped, yet it felt like blood money, payment for silence. Sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet, Alex would wheel himself to the window and stare into the darkness. He kept replaying everything: the disgusting caramels, the writhing maggots, the monstrous face that was no longer human. He told himself it had been a psychotic break, poisoning, anything rational. But deep down, he knew the truth. One rainy October evening, Emily called. Her voice was shaky. "Alex, I'm selling the building, the whole thing. I can't do this anymore. They're going to tear it down next year." Before he could answer, she added softly, "Mrs. Evelyn died 2 weeks ago. Heart attack, they said. They found her in that same room, surrounded by those horrible paintings." For a moment, Alex felt relief. It was finally over. Then Emily whispered the last words that would haunt him forever. "But the new owners already received a complaint from the tenant who moved into your old apartment. He says there's an old lady standing outside his door every night, staring through the peephole." The line went silent. Alex looked at his useless legs, at the rain beating against the glass, and for the first time since the hospital, he allowed himself to cry. Not from pain, but from the terrible realization that some evils don't die with the body. They simply wait for the next person foolish enough to open the door.